Good morning, students. So we'll discuss the different topics for general biochemistry. So as a recap, for our prelim, we will discuss introduction, so historical facts, and overview of different principles involving biochemistry. So in historical facts, we'll discuss uh, uh, scientists or person involved in the study of biochemistry. Then we'll discuss the different overview of different principles involving biochemistry or different studies or multidisciplines involving biochemistry. Then we'll discuss human cells, the important organelles and its functions, so transport mechanism also. So what are the different organelles? When you say organelles, that is the uh, little or small organs found inside the cytoplasm of the cells. And this transport mechanism refers to the transport of different ions or molecules from outside to inside environment the cells. How does these biomolecules or ions are being transported, okay, across the cell membrane? So what are the different processes or the reactions involved? Water, pH, and electrolytes. So we discuss water. What is the importance of water in the body? Okay, what is the importance of the interaction, of water from biomolecules? So for pH, we'll discuss. So pH maintain the acidity and basicity of the outside and inside environment of the cells and different electrolytes that crosses the cell membrane. Okay, in proteins, amino acids, so we'll discuss the basic principles, the structures, basic structures, reactions, and with nursing interventions. So what are the drugs to be given to the patients? So what are the different precautions? So enzymes. So we have medical interventions also. So the importance of enzymes inside the body. So when we say enzymes, these are catalysts. They hasten the chemical reactions, or they involve in catalysis process. Okay, or even digestion process. So midterm will discuss carbohydrates with medical interventions, fats with medical interventions, metabolism with medical interventions, nucleic acids with medical interventions also, vitamins and minerals. Okay. Re-enter, hopefully we can able to discuss cell signaling molecules, immunoglobulins, and diseases. By the way, class, in discussion of the biomolecules, when we say biomolecules, carbohydrates, fats, nucleic acids, proteins are examples of biomolecules. So in every discussion of that one, we'll be able to discuss also diseases and then the nursing interventions. Okay. So objective of general biochemistry. So the major objective of this study is the complete understanding or knowledge about the molecular level, at the molecular level, of all chemical processes associated with the living cells. All chemical processes, so or reactions took place in the living cells. The reactions between the biomolecules, proteins, amino acids, for example, with the living cells. How does it reacts? How does it crosses the cell membrane? So we'll discuss this one to be able to acquire the important knowledge about synthesis and reactions of biomolecules or macromolecules in nursing aspects. Okay, as nursing student, you cannot just learn, you just not going to learn, the basic principles, but the important principles. So what are the really importance? Don't you know that there are some drugs that are coming from biomolecules or coming from proteins? Example, insulin is a drug. Okay, it is coming from biomolecules. Vaccines, so you can able to know what are the different reactions when you administer these drugs to the patient. So that is very important to you. It's not just memorizing, it's not just injecting, but you have to know. Okay, at least alam mo ano yung ina-administer mo sa patient. Okay, what are the components of that one? To recognize the different structures and biomolecules, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, nucleic acid, and lipids. But for the nursing aspect, we will just discuss the common structures. You have to familiarize only, not to memorize. It's just a familiarization. Okay. So, hindi naman parehas ng kagaya ng mga pharmacy student or engineering student that they are dealing more on the chemical structures. So kung face to face ito, they draw the structures, they do the chemical reactions. For us nursing student, for nursing student, you just familiarize only. Okay? So describe the pathways that leads to generation and storage of metabolic fuels. Anong source ng metabolic fuels? Examples. The source of metabolic fuels commonly is the lipids or fats. So, how it is being generated and stored in the body. Okay? So, what are the processes involved before it will be stored in the body? Okay? So, we'll discuss that one, or we're going to describe that one. To have a thorough knowledge of different diseases involved, biomolecules. My dear students, anything that is excess in our body, that will lead to abnormal conditions or lead to genetic diseases or a disease. Okay? Kung sobrang dami ng fats, di ba? Later on, it will lead to hypertension or hyperglycemia, for example, or diabetes kung may excess na carbohydrates. Okay? So, for the introduction, so biochemistry is defined as the science of the chemical basis of life. Okay? Because we deal with biomolecules. So these are biomolecules that are needed by the living cells. So that is the study of biochemistry. The cell is the basic structural unit of life or the living system. Okay? From head to foot, our body is composed of the cell. From the keratin of the skin down to collagen of our connective tissues. So that is composed of proteins. Thus, biochemistry can also describe as the science concerned with the chemical constituents of living cells and with the reactions and processes they undergo. So, living cells composed of chemicals. Our body is a chemical because cell, it has a nucleus. In that nucleus, or ribosomes, it synthesizes proteins, and that proteins are needed by the cells, especially in the cell membrane. Diba? So that is a chemical processes. How does it synthesize? How does it being synthesized inside the cells? Through the process, through chemical processes. That is why we have to study biochemistry. And how does these living cells are affected by specific diseases, which involve biomolecules also. So, historical facts. So, Charaka in 400 BC or before Christ observed madhomea or diabetes mellitus is produced from the alteration of the metabolism of carbohydrates and fats. Because if there is a problem in the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, then it will cause higher amount or a higher amount that will be deposited inside the body. So, higher carbohydrates leads to diabetes. Higher amount of fats will lead to atherosclerosis. Okay? Or thickening of the plaque of fats in the arteries. Okay? That will lead to hypertension later on. Diba? So, that is the one contribution of madhomea. Term biochemistry was coined by Newberg in 1903 from the Greek word bios means life and chymos means juice. So, bios means life, chymos means juice, is not tang juice ha. Hindi yan mga 8 o'clock juice, that is a gastric juice or trypsin that is involved in the digestion of food inside the stomach. Okay, because that digestion is a biological process. Okay? One of the earliest treatises or writings in biochemistry was the book of organic chemistry, one compilation. So, and its applications to physiology, pathology, published in 1842 by Justus von Liebig, who introduced the concept of metabolism. That's why yung biochemistry nyo is the continuation of organic chemistry. Because in the last part of the topic of organic chemistry, there is a discussion there of carbohydrates and proteins. So next to that one, the applications to physiology and pathology, that is already biochemistry. Because organic chemistry, when we say organic, it is the branch of chemistry that deals with carbon and its chemical or physical properties. That organic. So ang biochemistry is derived from that organic chemistry. So because all biomolecules contains carbon, and anything that contains carbon is a biochemist is organic. I mean, in the study of carbon and its properties is known to be organic chemistry. Okay? So chemical example, we will just to review about organic chemistry. Little bit review. In chemical foundation of biochemistry, organic chemistry is the study of compounds of carbons and hydrogen and their derivatives. Okay? Because the cellular apparatus of living cells is made up of carbon compounds, biomolecules are part of subject matter of organic chemistry. That's why I am told you, proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids class contains carbon atom and they belong to organic. So additionally, many organic carbons are not found in any organism. So many topics of importance of organic chemistry have little connection with living things. We are going to concentrate on the aspect of organic chemistry that we need to understand what goes on in living cells. Because why? Because proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids are composed of carbon atom. Okay? And they are organic. These are organic compounds that interacts with the living cells. So, we will discuss. Okay? Ang example ng mga class of carbons, functional groups of biochemical importance. So, as a recap of your organic chemistry, we have the different functional groups that plays the important role in the chemical reactions. Same as in biochemistry. Your biomolecules is comprised, of different functional groups. Mga functional groups, these are structure or chemical structure or bonded compounds that are found in the main chain or the main structures that plays the important role in chemical reactions. Kaya ang tawag doon, functional group. Take note, in pharmacy, for example, o in medicines, mga nursing student, it's not just patient care, correct? It's not just patient care. Patient care yung pinafocus nyo. You have also to deal with drugs. So take note, all drugs is composed of functional group. Okay? You inject paracetamol, for example. You inject antibiotics. That antibiotic class contains biomolecules. You inject insulin drug. Insulin drug is coming from a protein. So it has a functional group. It has double bond. It has methyl group, for example. It has aldehyde group, for example. And that's the important role in chemical reaction. That's why, as a recap, we have alkenes. Usually they have double bond. Okay, these are example of the general structure, of the alkenes. Double bonded yan. Okay, for example, this is ethene or ethylene. Okay, kung triple bond yan, CH lang yan. Triple bond, that is acetylene, for example. Alcohols, okay, RCOH or ROH, this one. So, this is the functional group. Ito, general structure. Once may R yan, refers to the chain or the side chain of the general structure of the certain functional groups. Okay, we have thiols, RSH or SH. So sulfhydryl tawag doon, amino group. Amino group is amines, amino, amide, ammonia. You have aldehyde, the RCHO, or like this one. So, we have the ketone group, carbonyl group ang tawag doon, ha? Ketones, so RCOR. Aldehyde is RCH. We have ketone group is RCOR or RCOR tawag doon. Okay? Carbonyl group man siya because of the carbon that is double bond to oxygen. Okay? Ketones, For example, carboxylic acid, the RCOOH. Okay? We have carboxyl group or carboxylic acid, esters, okay? Amides, phosphoric acid esters, phosphoric acid aldehydes. So these are functional groups that are also found in the structures of amino acids. So it's just a review of your organic chem. So we'll not really focus on that one, okay? So modern biochemistry is perhaps most rapidly developing subject in medicine. For example, DNA recombination technology. Genes can be now transferred from one person to another. That is gene therapy. For example, a drug or a gene, healthy gene, is being used to treat a cancer patient. It needs a vector. Example, a vector is a virus. Usually, virus is a vector, a carrier of that certain gene to be injected to the person who is having genetic diseases. Vector class, usually virus yan. That is a protein, but it is dormant. It cannot cause harm to the body. Okay, because inside when these tissues that are injected to be injected, to the cancer patient, this is gene therapy. It needs a vector because vector usually binds with the receptor inside the cells before it enters the nucleus or it crosses the cell membrane. Okay, it needs a vector, and this vector is a protein, is the form of virus. Then vector enters the cells via the vesicular via vesicles. So vector is packed with vesicles, and this vesicle breaks down and release the vector together with the new gene or tissues that are coming from the donor to treat that abnormal tissues. Kasi yung mga cancer patient, for example, class, they have a neoplasm, di ba? Abnormal growth of tissues yan, or abnormal growth of cells. To correct that abnormal growth, so you have to inject a gene or a cell that is coming from healthy individual to correct. So that is part of modern biochemistry. Okay? So before injecting, so it will be undergone the series of tests also. Hindi basta-basta. Even vaccines like there are a lot of drugs today, or vaccines that are being studied to treat coronavirus, but it needs more studies, more trials. Okay? Because of course, COVID-19 is a new disease that now affects the human being around the world. Okay? So biomolecules. Our body is composed of a biomolecules class. So we have here the DNA structure, or the double helix, for example. 99% is composed of that 6 elements: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. Okay? That comprise the biomolecules. So this one is a protein. And that also contains 60% water, 15% proteins, 15% lipids, and 2% carbohydrates, and 8% minerals. So this is the general structure of carbohydrates. N refers to the number of carbon atom. So 2%. Why carbohydrates are 2% in the body? Because it is utilized as energy. So it is being consumed by the body. Consuming that carbohydrates also needs a supplement also. Okay? It needs for replenishment, Pina-replenish yan. That's why 2% na yung carbohydrates, because it is utilized as energy. It is being consumed by the body. Next, molecular structure of the living organisms. Well, usually this refers to the alphabet of biochemistry. So, molecular structure of living cells composed of 20 amino acids, 2 purines, 3 pyrimidines, sugars, glucose, and ribose, palmitate, glycerol, and choline. So, glucose is a carbohydrate. Sugars yan. Palmitate. This refers already to the amino acid. Choline and glycerol. Glycerol is already fats. Okay? Choline refers to the parts also of protein. Biomolecules are covalently linked to each other to form macromolecules. Okay? Example, glucose plus glucose. It will form a polysaccharide, for example, glycogen, or starch, amino acids to proteins. So one amino acid plus another amino acid, it will form a peptide. Peptide plus peptide, it will form a polypeptide known as proteins. That is considered to be ordered of hierarchy. Okay? From smaller to higher. Okay? Para magang position yan, from small position to higher position. So, it is almost the same as the order of the biomolecules. Next, study of metabolic processes involved in our body. So, the overview. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, this is broken down in the process of primary metabolism. Usually, ang primary metabolism, first metabolism usually happens in the mouth because the breakdown of that rice or carbohydrates, into a glucose, usually may initial metabolism happens. So, because of the presence of amylase enzyme in our saliva, that is preliminary. So, the primary metabolism, usually, the breakdown of that one, small units, example, carbohydrates to monosaccharides and proteins to amino acids, this is considered to be the primary metabolism. Okay? Usually happens from the mouth down to the stomach, and then after that primary, it follows the absorption process. Okay? So, usually, all that digests biomolecules crosses the cell or tissues of the small intestine pakadto sa bloodstream. So, after absorption, there is what we call secondary or intermediary metabolism. Hamba ka intermediary, it needs, that is a process, it needs one step or two steps to become the final process or final product. Intermediary, secondary ang tawag doon. So, small molecules are further broken down and oxidized to carbon dioxide, and there is what we call utilization or generation of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide plus hydrogen and flavin adenine dinucleotide plus hydrogen. These are considered to be reducing agent or even oxidizing agent ang tawag sa kanila. NADH plus FADH. Okay? NADH stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, while FADH is flavin adenine dinucleotide plus hydrogen. And after that intermediary metabolism, it undergoes the tertiary, or example, tertiary is the final metabolism. Reduced biomolecules enters the transport or electron transport chain to be oxidized to water, and ATP is trapped because ATP is already the energy that will be used up in our body. Okay, so these are the overview of the metabolic process that happens in our body. Next, the reciprocal relationship between biochemistry and medicine has stimulated mutual advances. Two major concerns for workers in the health science, and particularly in physicians, are the understanding and maintenance of health and understanding of effective treatment of disease. So, in biochemistry, it's not just we have to study all biomolecules, but also the diseases that are caused by these biomolecules and how to treat that certain diseases. Okay, so we, nursing, pharmacists, allied health professionals, must know the involvement of biomolecules in a specific disease. Okay, biochemical studies have illuminated many aspects of health and disease. Conversely, the study of various aspects of health and disease has opened up new areas for biochemistry. Example, biochemistry in medicine, lipids, atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is thickening or the deposit of plaque of fats in the arteries. So, if there is a thickening of fats in the arteries, it will lead to hypertension because the blood vessels will the space of the blood vessels is considered to be narrow already. So there is what we call increased flow of the blood that will lead to hypertension. Okay? So that is the relationship between biochemistry and medicine. For example, proteins, sickle cell anemia. So there's a problem already in the hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is the oxygen carrier. Myoglobin is oxygen binder. Hemoglobin is oxygen carrier. So if there's a problem on that one, so it will affect already the body functions because of the lowering of oxygen. So sickle cell anemia, if there's a problem in the hemoglobin, so it affects already the amount of oxygen in the body, and the cells will turn into sickle shape. Nucleic acid, different genetic diseases. So we'll discuss phenylketonuria, okay, the alkaptonuria, we'll discuss that one. Genetic meaning, these are diseases that are being passed through from the parent to the child, for example. Okay, carbohydrates, we discussed diabetes mellitus. Okay, there is a problem in the metabolic process of carbohydrates. Okay, if there's a problem in that one, so carbohydrates cannot be metabolized in the body, it will increase the amount in the blood. So, the hyperglycemia ka na naman. Okay, so it involves biochemistry and medicine. So, this example of atherosclerosis. So, there is a lipids, calcium, cellular debris, or that are deposited in the arteries. So, kung normal siya, so wala. Kung there is atherosclerosis, there is a thickening. So, it will lead to the narrowing of the blood vessels. So, magamay na yung space niya. So, there is what we call increased blood flow yan. Okay? So, these are examples. So, diyan ang sickle cell. So, these are normal cells. So, this is sickle-shaped cells. Okay. So, we go now to human cells. Human cells are considered to be the basic structural unit of life. It is composed of different organelles. It has a cell membrane that protects the cell from outside inside environment. The cells serve as boundary, diba? It has different organelles inside. So we'll discuss the lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, the endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, the plasma membrane, ribosome, cytoplasm, microtubules, centrioles, nucleus, nucleus, Golgi apparatus, and mitochondrium. So we will discuss the basic organelles that plays the important role in our body. So nucleus, most prominent organelle, or most visible organelle in the body. Okay. So for example, you study we study the cheek cells in the lab. So you can view the cells, and then the shaded part at the center is the nucleus that is most visible. Human cells contains nucleus except the mature RBC. So walang yung mature RBC, walang walang nucleus. And the uppermost part layer of the skin does not have identifiable nucleus. Meaning hindi mo makita, because why? Because the uppermost layer of the skin is keratinized. It is impregnated by a protein known as keratin. So the nucleus there are being covered by keratin. So there is non-keratinized and keratinized layer. Okay? That is why the uppermost layer is you cannot identify the nucleus there. Okay? Subnucleus occupies most of available spaces. For example, we have the sperm cell. So the head portion is occupied by the cell nucleus. So meaning the nucleus contains the genetic material. And example, the large lymphocytes. Okay? So large lymphocytes composed of the nucleus. Okay? This is the nucleus part. Next, nucleus contains the chemical basis of genes, which governs all functions of the cells. Because all function of the cells depends on the protein synthesis that took place inside the nucleus. And the replication, DNA replication, RNA synthesis takes place inside the cells. The production of protein, before the protein is produced, it undergoes DNA replication, it undergoes RNA synthesis also. Okay, so nucleus is the center of the nucleus. So inside the nucleus, for example, there is nucleus. Okay, this is a nucleus, I mean. So this is a cell, this is a nucleus. So this is the genetic material that are found inside the nucleus. So the center of the nucleus is the nucleus, an area of RNA processing and ribosome synthesis. Okay, nucleus is the prominent cells actively synthesizing proteins. So inside the nucleus, there is nucleus, and inside that nucleus, that is protein synthesis happens. So it is also part of the nucleus. Take note, a nucleus is part of the nucleus. Okay, so protein synthesis happens also in the nucleus, specifically in the nucleus part of the nucleus. Okay, so three-dimensional endoplasmic reticulum. We'll discuss endoplasmic reticulum. That is network interconnecting membranes enclosing channels of cisternae that are continuous from outer nuclear envelope to outer plasma membrane. So you try to see this is a nucleus, this is the wrap endoplasmic and smooth. So what are the functions? So protein synthesis. So what are the example of proteins? Immunoglobulins secreting plasma cells. Glycoproteins. So mga glycoproteins, that is glucose plus proteins. It involves in the transport of proteins. Lipoproteins, lipids plus proteins. Involves, ano function niya ng lipoproteins? Involves in the transport of lipids or fats. Are synthesized in the endoplasmic reticulum. Synthesis of cholesterol. So what is the function of cholesterol? Transport of fats. Partial and ethanol oxidation, or the alcohol oxidation that happens inside the body, because higher amount of alcohol in our body will lead to toxic effect of that one. Okay, so these are example of proteins that are being synthesized in the endoplasmic reticulum. So there's smooth and wrap. So what is the difference between the two? Because your wrap endoplasmic reticulum is comprised of that small circular part is known to be the ribosomes, and smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not contain ribosomes. So that is the difference between the two. So detoxification of different drugs is the important function, is one of the important function of your endoplasmic reticulum. Microsomal cytochrome P450 enzyme, or CYP450 enzymes hydroxylates. Okay, this is hydroxylates, kulang ng O to correct, such as benspyrin, aminopyrin, aniline, morphine, and most of the drugs are being detoxified by endoplasmic reticulum that are found in the liver cells. Okay, classified as smooth and rough. When cells are fractionated, okay, or they are fragmented, so kung magutod-utod na ang mga cells, the complex endoplasmic reticulum is disrupted or degraded. They are automatically reassembled to form microsomes. Okay? So when you say microsomes, if you want to separate the microsomes, so wrap endoplasmic, so we have the smooth. So it undergoes homogenization process. Homogenize siya. Okay? So parang to become small fragments. So wrap and smooth endoplasmic microsomes na yan. Yung wrap, yun ang wrap microsomes, yun ang wrap endoplasmic reticulum because it contains ribosomes. So i-mix nimo siya